So last class, we were discussing different terms associated with radiometry. Like we discussed, what to say, many different quantities such as radiant energy, radiant flux, that is energy per unit time, then radiant flux density, that is energy per unit time per unit meter square of area, and then radiance basically. So radiance is what is the energy either coming in or going out of an area per unit meter square of projected area in a given direction. So different terms we saw, and I asked you to go through some definitions, like a small some 2-3 page document extract from a textbook I posted in Moodle, which contained all different definitions of these terms. Hope you might have gone through it. Else please go through it as soon as possible. And we saw what is irradiance and emittance. That is, if the total area, sorry, if the energy is coming in towards the surface, we call it as irradiance. If the energy is going out from a surface, we call it emittance or excitance. Different terms are there. And how radiance is defined, we saw that. And similarly, we also saw that radiance and spectral flux density, how they fall off from a distance. What we noted is, as the distance increases, the radiant flux density will decrease by a factor of square of the distance. On the other hand, radiance will remain constant as long as the source that is emitting the energy is like of very large extent and it is emitting energy homogeneously. That's what we saw. Like within a solid angle, energy will be the same as long as the source is big enough to provide that. On the other hand, radiant flux density will be keep on decreasing as you move away and away from the source. This is what we have seen. And we also saw the relationship between radiance and radiant flux density for Lambertian surfaces. That is, if the surface has the capacity to radiate energy equally in all directions, then the total irradiance from the surface is equal to pi times the radiance from the surface. That is, E is equal to L pi. So if the surface is Lambertian, that is, if it can emit energy equal in all direction, the total emittance or radiant flux density E is equal to pi times L. So this is one of the relationship which we will use often in different remote sensing quantities. When we derive what is reflectance and all, we will use this. So you have to remember this, and also this relationship, how to replace solid angle by two plane angles, that is the angle of elevation and the azimuth angle. So this also you have to remember, as again we will use this thing often. And this is the problem where we stopped in last class. I asked you to calculate the mean solar irradiance at the Earth's surface. Assume equivalent black body temperature of Sun 5770 Kelvin, radius of Sun so and so 7 to 10 power 8 meters, mean Earth Sun distance 1.5 to 10 power 11 meters. So this is the problem. Maybe I will work out the steps again. Did anybody try it? Any answers from student side?
1368.
1368. Who did this? I couldn't see your face because I'm in full slide. Mayur, okay.
Mayur.
1368 is correct answer actually. So anyway, for others, I will tell how to do. So please do it maybe along with me if you have a calculator beside you. Okay, so first thing is we have to calculate what is the spectral radiant emittance from the sun. So essentially we have to calculate M. M is equal to sigma T power 4. That is Stefan Boltzmann law, we know that. So you substitute, you will get what is the total radiant excitance from the sun in units of watt per meter square. Again, I am not having the intermediate answers. I only know the final answer because the workout problem is in my office, which I didn't go and pick it up. So please, you do it along with me, okay? So when you solve this problem, you will solve this step, you will get what is the spectral radiance or not spectral, the total spectral emittance from sun in the units of watt per meter square. But sun is not a point, sun has a large area. So the total power emitted by sun is equal to this particular spectral radiant excitance multiplied by area of sun. That is, sun is like a huge ball of sphere. So per unit meter square of area, this is the value. This m will be the value. So what is the total area for a sphere? The total area is 4 pi into r square. So r of the sun is 7 into 10 power 8 whole square. Sorry. If you do this, you will get the total power emitted by the sun. Now, sun is emitting this much energy, and that energy goes in all possible directions because sun is, we assume sun as a uniform source as emitters. Okay, sun emits equally in all directions. That's our assumption. So in every direction it moves away, whereas Earth will be in only one particular direction. Maybe I'll draw here. Like if the sun is here, emitting equally in all direction, Earth will be in any one particular direction only. Okay, Earth should be smaller, not this big. Yeah. Earth will be in any one direction. So any one particular energy only is coming towards the Earth, and the distance is d. So what essentially it means, whatever the power emitted by the sun is going to be distributed in a big sphere surrounding the sun of this much radius. That is, the sun and the Earth are separated by certain distance. Yeah, sun is here, Earth is here. So what is the distance between them? That particular distance of the power from the sun is going to be distributed along this particular sphere of distance d. And since sun is we assume sun as a uniform emitter, we call it as isotropic emitter. That is, it will emit energy equally in all directions. If that is the case, then this power, total power from the sun is going to be distributed across all over this particular hemisphere. So this, whatever the power emitted by sun is distributed towards this whole surface area of this big sphere. In order to get what is reaching the Earth, we need to divide the total power from the sun in watts divided by surface area of the bigger hemisphere. Okay, so the power reaching the Earth or per meter square is equal to total power divided by surface area of the bigger sphere covering Earth and the sun. So if you do this, m into 4 pi into 10 power 8 square divided by 4 pi into 10 power 11 whole square, right? Yes. Okay, here 7 is here, I'm sorry. 7 square into 10 power 8 square. So if you do this, the final answer will be 1368 watt per meter square. That is, this is the total amount of radiant flux density that has been emitted by sun that will reach the Earth. 1368 watt per meter square across all wavelength. This is not spectrally variant. This is the total energy across all wavelength. And there is a name for it. This 1368 watt per meter square is what we call the solar constant. This is also like kind of important for students who work in optical remote sensing, because solar constant is fairly useful value to remember. 1368 watt per meter square. That is, from sun at an average distance of this much. This is an average distance. Anyway, the distance between Earth and sun will keep on varying based on seasons, but this is average distance. If the average distance is this is the average energy that will reach Earth's surface from sun, and this is per meter square on Earth's surface. Okay, so every 1 meter on Earth's surface will receive this much energy. That is the idea of solar constant. So Is it clear or any doubts on the problem? No doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, then we will proceed. So please work out the problem. When you find them, the steps are here. The fairly simple problem only. You have to understand the geometry between sun and earth and how the power from the sun is going to be distributed. If you understand this, it is like an extremely simple problem to do it. Okay, so please give it a shot, and any questions you can ask me either in WhatsApp or on Monday's class. No issues. Fine. Now we will get a broad understanding of what happens to the EMR at the surface. First, we will see this, then we will again dig deeper into radiometry. When some energy is falling, like this is the Earth's surface, sun's radiation is coming in, it can undergo three different processes. A part of the energy will be reflected back to outer space. It is what we call reflection. A part of the energy can be absorbed, or a part of the energy can be transmitted. That is, the total incoming energy from the sun can be reflected back to the space itself, or partially absorbed or partially transmitted. Normally for land surfaces, transmission is 0, but transmission will be there for water bodies and also for plant or tree canopies. That is, like when there is a tree here, tree will have like multiple layers of leaf. Each leaf will absorb certain quantity and will transmit certain quantity, which the next layer of leaf will absorb. So each and every layer of leaves in a tree or a plant will transmit some energy to the bottom layers. Then only like the leaves on the bottom or towards the trunk will survive basically. So plant or tree canopies can transmit some energy. Water bodies can transmit some energy. That is why light will be passing through the lakes or whatever water bodies. But for normal land surface, buildings, flows and everything, transmittance is 0. That is, energy will not be transmitted. They are opaque surfaces. But they can be absorbed. Like absorption is always energy used up by that particular object. Like the energy will be absorbed and it will be used for some other purposes, like increasing the temperature of the object, or for some other work that particular energy might have been used. So that is what we call absorption. And reflection. Reflection is the most common thing that will happen. Some part will be reflected back. Actually, the colors of the object we see is basically reflection. When we see an object in red in color, that particular object is reflecting energy in the red band and absorbing other bands, green and blue bands, it is absorbing. If an object appears yellow to our eyes, it is reflecting equal amounts of what blue is, I think red and green, blue and green. Yeah, blue and green, it will reflect equally, and the other thing it will. So whatever the color we see, the color of an object is basically which wavelength it is reflecting back, and whatever it is absorbing will not be seen by our eyes. That is the principle of color, how we perceive. But that is only in the visible band that our eyes can see. In all other bands also, be it NIR, be it SWR, same phenomenon occurs. Either it can be reflected or absorbed or transmitted. So based on this total energy or based on this individual components, we can define three different things. That is, the energy reflected by total incident energy, we call it as reflectance. The energy transmitted by total incident energy, we call transmittance. The energy absorbed by total incident energy, we call absorptance. So here, either we can use, what to say, for reflectance, I can use radiant flux density, what is being reflected back, radiant flux density by irradiance. Here also I can use the transmitted energy in watt per meter square, that is radiant flux density that has been transmitted divided by irradiance. Here also I can use radiant flux density in watt per meter square by irradiance, total irradiance again in watt per meter square. So unit wise, numerator and denominator are equal. Radiant flux density in watt per meter square will be in the top. Same radiant flux density, that is irradiance, in the same units will be in the bottom. So reflectance, transmittance and absorptance are essentially unitless. They don't have any units. And they will tell us if some 100 units of energy is falling on a surface, how much fraction is split into different components. Maybe an object may be like a very good reflector. So maybe 50-60% of energy might be reflected back. So reflectance will be 0.5. 20% of energy may be transmitted. So transmittance is 0.2. And 30% of energy may be absorbed. So absorptance is 0.3. So if you add all the fractions, you will get 1 essentially. So the total incident energy on Earth's surface can either be reflected or be absorbed or be transmitted. These three phenomena will occur, and all these three, whatever we are seeing, essentially we are talking about visible, NIR and SWIR bandwidths. Okay, this is we call optical bands. So whatever we are talking in this particular slide is equally applicable to visible, NIR and SWIR bands. For thermal bands and all, there are like certain different rules we will see later in the class. Okay. So this reflectance, absorption, transmittance are applicable across three different EMR bandwidths. And please remember these definitions. What reflectance means? Reflectance is the fraction of energy, fraction of the total energy that has been reflected back. Transmittance is the fraction of the total energy that has been transmitted through the object. Absorptance is the fraction of total energy that has been absorbed by the object. This thing you have to remember, and energy I am telling it colloquially. When you write or when you speak about in a technical place, you should use the correct term. That is the radiant flux density in watt per meter square. Okay. So this is definition. Again, then one more concept that we need to know is directionality of remote sensing measurements. Till now, we haven't spoken anything much about directions, but essentially, remote sensing measurements involves a lot of directionality. Directionality in the sense, what we call the quantity that we measure will have a variation along different directions. How we observe the quantities of interest to us, that will matter the most, and that will influence our analysis results. So it is always better to understand the directionality of remote sensing measurements. Okay. So here the directionality can be defined using two components. First thing is, as I said, in visible, NIR and SWIR bands, the energy source is sun for us. So solar radiation can come in one particular direction. Similarly, an object also can reflect in any one major direction or multiple directions. That can happen. So in which direction energy is coming, in which direction energy is going out, and how we observe is going to change the values that we are observing in remote sensing systems. Okay. Maybe with an example, I will tell you. Yes. Now let us see, there is a surface here. Solar radiation is coming in. Essentially, solar radiation has two parts. One is the direct radiation from sun, and the second part is the diffuse radiation from the atmosphere. So direct radiation is, say, whatever the sun is directly transmitting towards the Earth's surface. This is direct radiation. But as we have already seen, atmosphere scatters a lot of energy, and this will come towards the Earth's surface, illuminating the same object. This is what we understood as a reason for shadows to be not perfectly pitch dark. Shadows also, we can see some objects within shadows because of this diffuse skylight. that we already seen. So sunlight has two particular components. So essentially sun has, so if you take a surface, this particular, so if you take a small surface here, this surface is receiving a major source of radiation from this one direction and other smaller sources of energy from all directions surrounding it, that is within the hemisphere. If you draw a hemisphere around the object of interest, so diffuse radiation is present all across the hemisphere, whereas sun's primary radiation will come in like a small solid angle. Same thing will apply with respect to remote sensor observation, like a small land surface be here. Let the sensor be here. So whatever the object is reflecting back, a sensor will have like a small solid angle subtended to the object, and whatever the energy is emitting from the object will be reaching the sensor. A sensor cannot see like a whole hemisphere. Sensor has one particular direction, one very small solid angle to see, because that's how sensor will be, like remote sensing sensor will have the detectors attached to it. It cannot see the entire hemisphere. It can see in only one particular direction. Today sensor may be located here. The other day sensor may be located here and may be seeing the same object. So based on this orientation alignment, the energy received by the sensor will vary. Okay, so this is what basically directionality is about. So based on the directionality, like in which direction energy is coming, in which direction energy is going, in which solid angle we are observing everything, we can have 9 different cases basically. What are the 9 different cases? One is what we call as bidirectional, that is energy is coming only in one particular direction, energy is not coming in other directions, ruled out, and that incoming energy is reflected again in only one particular direction. Again, the object is not reflecting in any other direction. It can happen. Energy can be coming in from only one direction, going out in another one direction. The common case in remote sensing, what we do normally is this particular thing. Hemispherical conical case. That is, when sun is the primary source of energy, I already told you sun will have one major direct component that is coming in directly from the sun itself, and the diffuse radiation that is coming in from all different directions within the hemisphere covering the object. So the energy received by the object will be hemispherical in nature. Within a whole hemisphere, whatever energy is coming in, both from sun and from the sky, it will receive. But what a remote sensing sensor will absorb, it will absorb a small cone on the object of interest. It will have a small solid angle, and if you see it from space, that particular small solid angle can be represented as a cone, because normally 3-dimensional angle we always say it is a cone. From the apex and the bottom is the surface area we are seeing essentially. So this is why in normal remote sensing purposes, what we do is the energy received by the object is within the total hemisphere. On the other hand, the energy absorbed by the sensor is conical in nature. Whatever is going through within this particular solid angle only will be observed. If the energy is reflected by object in other directions, it won't be absorbed by the sensor. It will vary. And other different cases also we can do, like normally in lab measurements, we can have more controlled ways of measuring the object. Like lab also we can create reflectance spectra. Yesterday in lab I was telling you, like remote sensing lab class, I was telling you how spectral libraries will be created. Objects will be taken inside the laboratory, they will be illuminated by some artificial source of light, and they will be observed by sensors in different directions. So they can be of this particular case biconical, that is artificial source of light. If there's a bulb here, the bulb essentially will emit radiation in form of a cone. Similarly, there will be a sensor here. That sensor will observe the object within the same cone where it is coming. So in lab cases, if you are treating the objects within the lab, the energy emitted may be from within a cone, maybe irradiating the object, and the energy going out from another cone may be absorbed by the sensor. So this is what we call it as directionality, which quantity we are essentially measuring. Are we measuring the energy coming in within the entire hemisphere? Are we measuring the energy only within a specific cone, or are we measuring the energy only within one specific direction? All these things matter when we define different quantities in remote sensing. Okay, so any questions on this? Like, what is this directionality? Why this is important?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in hemisphere conical case, suppose the light is coming from from whole hemisphere. Suppose you take at the for very low angle, from like for making some 10-degree angle with horizontal, then it will be reflected at the same angle, or means as light travels in a line. So how that line can go to the sensor? Yes.
No, it depends on sensor's reflection property. If the sensor is specular, the same angle will be maintained. If the sensor is not specular, if it is diffuse, it can reflect in other directions. We will see it later. There's like separate lectures how this variation will vary with respect to directions. We will see that. A sensor always need not produce for Earth surface features. The angle of reflection and angle of incidence need not always be equal. That is applicable only for
Yes.
very smooth surfaces. Most
Yes,
of the Earth's surfaces are not really smooth, right?
Okay.
Okay.
That was
And yeah, maybe again, yeah, any other question?
in the previous slides before that we are looking about the reflection, and this one, suppose 100-watt energy is coming from the sun, and you are getting that reflected transmitter absorption, but we know that the body which is we are inspecting, it also has some temperature and it's also emitting its own energy. So we are not as we have seen that every body which having a temperature will emit energy. So we are not taking that. Suppose sun is giving 100 watt and that body is also giving 20 watts. So how we can distinguish between which energy is reflected and which is the emitted by that body?
Okay. When I was talking about the slide, I specifically mentioned whatever we are talking here is applicable to visible, NIR, and SWR bandwidths. We have not spoken about anything about long wave infrared bandwidths. Okay. Earth, at the given temperature of whatever objects are there on the Earth's surface, most of the cases, the emittance from the Earth will be in the LWIR band between 8 to 14 micrometers. Unless we observe in that particular bandwidth, 8 to 14 micrometers, if we observe only in this visible, NIR, and SWR bandwidths, we will be observing only the reflected energy, because Earth cannot emit radiation in this particular bandwidth. If you have done assignment 2, and the first problem, you might have seen that the emission of Earth in NIR and SWR bandwidth is extremely low when compared with emission energy received from the sun. Same thing will happen in normal remote sensing cases. Whatever the Earth is will be almost the emitted energy in these three bands from Earth is almost zero when compared with the incoming energy from the sun. Only when you go to thermal bandwidth, 8 to 14 micrometer bandwidth, emitted energy from Earth will be more, reflected energy from the Earth will be, reflected energy will be zero. So the bands in which we observe will actually capture whether it is reflected or it is emitted. Okay.
Okay.
Again, we will see like in different bands. Actually, there is a band, mid-wave infrared band, typically around 3 to 7 micrometers or something, where both energy may cross each other, reflected energy and emitted energy. If you do remote sensing in this particular band, then definitely there will be a question whether this is reflected or this is emitted. There will be a huge confusion. We will see it later. But as long as you are in visible, NIR, and SWR bands, Whatever energy you are seeing during daytime, it is reflected. If you are in thermal band, that is 8 to 14 micrometers, whatever energy you are seeing is primarily emitted. That you can be sure. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Because this is because of the Wien's displacement law, essentially, in which wavelength the object is emitting. Wien's displacement law will tell us, right, essentially. And even from Planck's law, you can see. That's why I gave you that problem 1 in assignment 2. Essentially, for you to appreciate how small or big is the energy between Earth and the Sun at different wavelengths. If you just carefully note the plots, you will appreciate this much in a much better way.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Again, coming back to directionality, the reason I told you this directionality component is, once again, I'm repeating because again, this is important. Directionality is important because the quantities that we observe, whether are we observing in only one particular direction, or are we observing within a small cone of solid angle, or are we observing within an entire hemisphere, this will cause difference in the quantity we measure. Whether we are measuring radiant flux density or whether we are measuring radiance, whatever the quantity we measure, essentially that will influence whether are we considering only one direction or are we measuring the entire hemisphere surrounding an object. Okay, so this geometry of observation is really critical in remote sensing. This is one thing. And second thing, the first case I explained, bidirectional, that is energy is coming in from only one direction and energy is going out from only one direction. So that is exactly one line, not even a small cone, exactly one line. So this kind of occurrence is not possible in real world. That is, whatever be the energy source, be it sun, be it artificial light source like a bulb, anything, it cannot give light exactly in one direction. Light will always be traveling in a small cone at least. So this is for mathematical convenience we have for defining different terms using mathematical terms. Like in differential geometry, integral geometry will always define a very small elemental area, very small elemental distance for doing our mathematical calculations. Same principle here. In real world, none of the light sources essentially directional. Light will always be coming, whether it is sun or artificial light source, light will always be coming in a small cone at least. If it is sun, it can be a whole full hemisphere, or if it is artificial light source, one small cone. Same thing with observation. Whatever observation you do, like even with your camera, even with your eyes, you will be seeing cone in front of you basically. You will not be seeing the entire hemisphere. Maybe like some animals, I think chameleon or some animals can see in entire hemisphere surrounding it. But human eyes, remote sensing sensors or whatever is not having the capacity to see the entire hemisphere surrounding us. We can see only a small cone in the direction which we are looking. So whatever energy is coming within the cone only, we will observe. So that is also not a single direction, but we will observing one particular cone. But for some applications, like for some land surface, when you do next semester, there is a course on remote sensing for water resources. There we will be discussing more about how energy is coming in across Earth, how energy is going out. All these things will have different influence on atmosphere, water, and everything. For those applications, we will be studying what is the total energy has been reflected by an object within the entire hemisphere. Okay, like all objects will emit energy within the entire hemisphere. That is true, but our remote sensing observations will be directional. That is, will be conical. From this conical observations, how to get this energy that has been reflected from the entire hemisphere? We need to know that how to go about it. All these things will matter most, and that is why I said the direction in which we observe is going to be critical in remote sensing. Yeah, same thing is mentioned here. Source, object, sensor, geometry. As I said before, whatever the energy coming in, maybe if it is from an artificial source, it will be coming in from a cone here. And whatever energy is going out towards the sensor, again, it will be kind of like a cone. if the object is, let us say if the incoming energy is uniform in all directions, whether the source is located here or here or here, it doesn't matter. If the incoming energy is uniform, then there is no issues. Similarly, if the object is also emitting uniformly in all directions or reflecting uniformly in all directions, that is object is Lambertian, then also there may not be a big issue. In whatever direction you observe, in whatever cone you observe, you are going to get similar values. But the problem is, neither of this is true for remote sensing of Earth surface. The incoming energy will vary with direction. That is, if the sun is here, let us say there is a tree standing here. Let us say the sun is here. Okay. So this particular portion of tree will receive direct radiation from the sun, whereas the other half of the tree will not be able to receive the direct radiation from the sun, but it will be receiving only the diffuse radiation. So the amount of energy received by this half of tree will be different, by this half of tree will be different. Similarly, if there is like a big building and there is like a small garden beside it, same thing will happen. If the sun is here, this portion of building will receive direct radiation, and this small garden will be in the building shadow, and this will be receiving only the diffuse radiation from the sky. So what essentially it means is, if you take this as one particular pixel in remote sensing sensor, maybe pixel and all really clear terms we'll define later, but just understand, if the sensor is seeing everything together at one go, then even within this particular area, the incoming energy is different in different directions. This is one thing. Same thing will happen with the objects. All objects are not uniform reflectors. They are not Lambertian. They will reflect differently in different directions. That is, if you look at a tree from one direction, it may appear light green. The same tree, if you look at from a different angle, it may appear dark green. It is true. Reflection will vary from direction. So essentially, in remote sensing, whatever we measure are highly directional. The quantities we measure will vary with direction and will vary with the solid angle of our observation. Are we observing within a small solid angle? Are we observing within whatever is happening within the entire hemisphere? Everything will influence the quantity that we are measuring, and we really have to be careful about which quantity we are measuring truly. Unless we are really careful about it, then when we use these values for our further applications, we may get wrong results. Like you will appreciate this when I explain you next concept, but just imagine one thing, all remote sensing properties mostly are directional, and in which way we measure, either we are measuring in a cone or are we measuring within the entire hemisphere covering the object, will influence our observations. Okay, so this is what we call source object sensor geometry. A same object will look completely different than the illumination geometry, that is the energy source geometry, when it changes or when the observation geometry changes. Same object will look completely different. That you always have to appreciate. So that is the reason why it is always difficult. Yesterday in remote sensing lab, I told you that even though we have spectral reflectance curve, we will not be able to identify objects 100% because of these factors. This is one of the primary factors. Same object will look completely different when you look from different direction or when the direction of incoming energy changes. This is really critical for you to understand. Okay. Now just one or two slides before, we defined what reflectance is essentially. So reflectance is amount of radiant flux density that is leaving a surface divided by the total irradiance received by that particular surface. This is the basic definition. We have seen it. If you take like remote sensing, as I said before, whatever the energy that is being sensed by the remote sensing sensor can be directional, that is only from one direction. Theoretically possible, practically not possible, but theoretically we can assume we are observing energy from exactly one straight line. That is only one direction. In real world, we will be observing along a cone from the sensor to the object. Like from a small solid angle, we will be seeing the object. For some applications, as I said, we may need to know what is the total energy reflected in all directions in the full hemisphere surrounding the object. That is also is needed in some application, like especially if someone is working in a snow related application, you might be needing to know what fraction of energy is reflected by snow in all directions. We call it albedo. You need to know. If you are working in climate related applications, then also people will need to know what is the total energy reflected by the object in all directions surrounding it. Whereas in remote sensing, the sensors will give you mostly within one particular direction. So there is a difference of terminologies we use, and that's what we are going to see here. So the observed reflectance may either be directional, conical, or hemispherical. That is, you may either see the energy going out from an object either in exactly only one direction, which is only theoretically possible, practically not possible. It can be conical, most likely. It can also be hemispherical. That is, if you have like a rapid observation sensor, at least in lab, it is theoretically possible to observe within an entire hemisphere. Okay. So the energy going out from an object can be observed in three different ways. And all the three, whether you are observing in only one direction, or you are observing within a small cone of solid angle, or you are observing within an entire hemisphere surrounding an object, need not be the same. They can vary. If the object is Lambertian, these three things will vary. But if the object is non-Lambertian, that is, as I said before, same object will look different when you see from different directionality perspective. So for non-Lambertian surfaces, all the three quantities will be different. They will not be the same. So if I ask you to measure reflectance, three of you, if you measure in three different ways, one may be measuring reflectance in directional way, one may be measuring reflectance in conical way, one may be measuring reflectance hemispherical. Let us assume you three guys are doing it in three different ways. Each one of you will tell me one reflectance value. All the three reflectance value will vary basically. Which value should I use for my application? Which value should I take? It depends on the application in which you are working on. Okay. Basically, what we measure in a satellite along with a conical observation, we call that as normal, or sorry, we call that as simply as reflectance. Okay. So conical observation. This is normal. So whatever you observe from a remote sensing sensor or with a small handheld sensor on field, whatever you do, we call them as reflectance. That is, what is the energy going in that particular direction? If you see here, sensor is located here. So this sensor will observe whatever energy is coming in this particular direction. This will give you like a one value. And you can calculate the total energy also. That is possible. Theoretically, you can calculate the total energy that is coming in either in one direction or going out. So energy reflected, E reflected divided by E irradiance. If you do this, you will get a reflectance value. But this reflectance from this sensor is essentially this E reflected is observed only within this cone. So we can call it as conical reflectance or simply reflectance. On the other hand, if you have a sensor, let us say you have a really huge sensor, maybe like a big lid, okay. Like normally in cooking, what we do, we will take a small vessel in cooking, we will put a lid covering the entire cooking vessel, like a shape of a hemisphere. Imagine you have such a sensor, a big hemispherical sensor. Let the object be here. Let the object be here. This is the object of interest. You need to measure the total reflectance from it. Let us assume you have some hypothetical sensor which takes a form of a hemisphere and observes everything coming in within this hemisphere. Okay, so essentially what you are observing reflected energy only, but instead of observing within one direction or one cone, you are observing within entire hemisphere. So if you observe energy within this entire hemisphere and use it for calculating reflectance, we call that particular reflectance as albedo. So please remember this. There is a difference between these two terms, reflectance and albedo. If you read papers, when you move to your higher classes, like different courses next semester, where you will study remote sensing applications, some applications will mention reflectance, some application will mention albedo, especially like snow related applications, water resources related applications. Mostly they will talk about albedo. When you read the word albedo, you should immediately remember that in albedo, if you want to really calculate albedo, you need to know what is the total energy reflected by the object within the entire hemisphere surrounding it. Albedo is not equal to the conical observations made by remote sensing sensors. The conical observations made by remote sensing sensor are essentially called simply reflectance. Albedo means you must observe what is being reflected by the object within the entire hemisphere surrounding the object. So there is a big difference between reflectance and albedo. Like the value, if you look at the numbers may be small for you. There are like different data sets which gives you both reflectance and albedo. In later lab classes, I will ask you to examine these things. Okay. The numbers may be really small. All the values will vary between 0 to 1. Like either it is reflectance or it is albedo, the values will vary between 0 to 1. The values also may be really close, like reflectance may be 0.12, albedo may be 0.14. Values may be too small and too close to each other. But you see the percent difference. This is 0.12, this is 0.14. So the difference is 0.02. And if you divide it by say the reflectance value itself 0.12, you can see this is almost 1/6. So 1/6 is roughly 16%. So there is a difference of 16%. If you just look at the numbers, the value is very small. But if you see it in percentage, the differences between these two is almost 16%, which is very high for climate studies, water resources, and so on. If you substitute these two in those equations, like in different applications, your answer is going to change a lot. So this is really important to know. What is the difference between albedo and reflectance and which value to use? Okay. So now I think you should be knowing what albedo is, what reflectance is. So any doubts up to this point?
Sir, how do we accommodate that hemispherical like sensor? Can we have that much big of a sensor, or do we have to increase distance?
No. It is not possible to observe hemispherical energy from a remote sensing sensor. Remote sensing sensors, whatever we do will be conical, or we can assume it to be directional under certain mathematical restrictions. We can do it. We have to calculate this albedo using certain equations that we will be seeing later. In this particular topic itself, we will see. It is not possible to observe albedo. We have to model albedo. We have to calculate on our own.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sir,
Sorry, voice is breaking.
Sir,
Yes.
in previous slides, there are two means conicals. One is reflecting from the Earth's surface and one is receiving. Yes, sir. In the picture, we are considering when reflectance means when there is a radiance, the cone is shrinking at the Earth's surface. Then at the time when it is reflecting, means it should be same, na sir. When it is starting, it should be base of cone. Means when there is a sensor, then sensor should receive like the base of the cone at the Earth's surface, and sensor receive like the pinpoint reflectance.
Like when you see from the sensor perspective, what you said is true. Like that's why when I always drawing, I will draw like this. From a sensor perspective, the base of cone is Earth surface and the apex is in the sensor. That is true. Here the drawing is with respect to the point on the Earth surface. Like they have considered a small point as the apex. With respect to that point, they have calculated everything. So drawing is another way around, not with respect to a geometry from a sensor's view. From a Earth surface, if you are standing here and seeing, this is what you will see, right? In that particular sense, they have drawn it. And just for example's sake, I have put it. But actual geometry, what you said is correct. Sensor we see like this. Apex will be in the sensor. Base will be on the Earth surface. Yes.
I just want to say, sir, that it should be always like this. Only one picture we should consider from sun to earth. So
only one picture you should consider. Maybe, yeah, maybe this is I taken from a textbook. So there they have described from this particular perspective. That's why I said it depends on the perspective in which you see, whether you see things from the ground or whether you see things from sky. But here just you know the concept. It is what you said is right. From a remote sensing perspective, always the drawing should be like this. That is, the apex is at the sensor, base is at the Earth surface. That is true. Always it should be. This drawing is another way around, just for telling you the concepts, not what happens in Earth. Okay, just for telling what is what. Nothing much.
Okay. Thank you.
Here also they have done it in that particular perspective with respect to this point, how things look. So normally when people draw, they use that particular perspective just to know with respect to that small point what happens. Okay. Just for what to say, explanation purpose. This is like a convention people follow. We cannot like force them to change, right? So this is whatever you textbook or see or journal article you see, similar convention only people are following. But remote sensing geometry is slightly different. That as students and as scientists, we should appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Or I think now time is 12:30. Can we proceed for another few minutes so that I will complete this? Try to complete this topic at least. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you all. And yeah, as I said, now I think you should be knowing what's the difference between reflectance and albedo. And I think now by this time, especially people in remote sensing lab course who are taking it, should be knowing that MODIS is a sensor. MODIS has a lot of products. Many different data products are there coming in from MODIS sensor. If you look at the entire catalog of MODIS data product, you will come across these terms: black sky albedo, white sky albedo, surface reflectance. These three different products are there, especially dealing with reflectance products: black sky albedo, white sky albedo, surface reflectance. What are these things? We just saw albedo and we just saw reflectance. What reflectance is and what albedo is. Essentially deal with the difference in direction in which we observe. If we are observing either in only one direction or if we are observing within a cone, whatever reflectance we are measuring, we call it as simply reflectance. On the other hand, if we are measuring the outgoing reflectance within the entire hemisphere surrounding the object, we call it as albedo, simply albedo. But what is this black sky and white sky? Why these two things are there? These things are there because of the complexity in sunlight, how sunlight is coming. I will tell you, like when I just introduced the concept of directionality, I told you sunlight has two components. One is the direct component that is coming directly from the sun. Another thing is the diffuse component coming in from the sky. If you take a small land surface feature here, it is receiving energy from these two sources. One, the direct energy, one from this diffuse skylight. Two sources of energy is there. So the total irradiance received by the object, E total, is equal to the direct irradiance from the sun plus the diffuse irradiance received by the object. Direct irradiance from the sun is fairly simple to model. Like we all know, at a given latitude and longitude of Earth's surface, at a given date and time where the sun location will be, like sun's elevation angle, sun's azimuth angle, etc. We can calculate because orbit of sun and orbit of earth is fixed. They are fixed. We can calculate this. If we know the atmosphere fairly, that is also we can model nowadays. We can calculate this fairly easily. This is possible. Modeling this is not so simple. Diffuse radiation, because diffuse radiation is primarily due to scattering in the atmosphere, and the scattering may be different in different directions. Let us assume there is a cloud here, and some sort of smoke is coming in like this. Maybe someone is burning something on the next field. Some smoke is coming in. What essentially will happen? Because of these different objects, cloud, smoke and everything, the diffuse skylight from this direction will be different from the diffuse sky from this direction. And using our satellite data or maybe whatever models we use, it will be difficult for us to tell at that particular point there was smoke. At that particular time, there was a cloud that passed by. It's difficult for us to tell. So modeling this exact diffuse radiation is not, that is actually received by the sensor, is not an easy task, extremely difficult. Unless you get this exactly correctly, like at this point, at this point of time, at this point of space, what was the diffuse radiation? Unless you get this exactly, it won't be possible to calculate this total irradiance from an object correctly. It is almost impossible. That is why what people did is they had made some simplifying assumptions in order for them to calculate albedo. What they did is they said we can model direct radiation. It is possible because we know the location of sun in space, how much energy sun will emit. We know we can calculate some with some accuracy atmospheric absorption and all. So this is possible. Let us assume diffuse radiation is 0. No diffuse radiation exists. Let us assume the total irradiance from the object is equal to only the direct radiation from the sun. Based on that, you calculate hemispherical reflectance. That is, you calculate albedo. That is E reflected in a hemisphere divided by E direct, whatever the direct radiation from the sun. So what essentially it means, sun's energy is coming in from only one direction. We can assume when I told you about the problem about sun and earth, I said sun can be treated as a point source essentially. That is, sun's distance is very far when compared with the size of sun and earth. So sun can be treated as a point source, and the solid angle subtended by the sun, I think you guys would have calculated it. Solid angle subtended by sun is some 6.8 into 10 power minus 5 or some radians, extremely small. You can consider it as equal to one single line. Mathematically, it is assumption is true. So you can consider the sun's radiation is coming from only one direction, directional incoming radiation, and outgoing you are observing entire hemisphere. If you calculate albedo for this particular circumstance, you are calculating what is known as a black sky albedo. Okay, so black sky albedo means albedo you are calculating, that is, you are calculating hemispherical reflectance, but for the incoming radiation you are not taking into account the diffuse radiation. You are taking into account only the direct radiation coming in from the sun. If you calculate albedo based on that, you get black sky albedo. So black sky albedo is also known as directional hemispherical reflectance. That is, incoming energy is from only one particular direction, direct radiation from the sun. Outgoing energy we are measuring within the entire hemisphere surrounding the object, and we are measuring reflectance out of it. So black sky albedo is also known as directional hemispherical reflectance. Okay. Now, second thing, what is the white sky albedo? Maybe I'll put in another slide. What is a white sky albedo? White sky albedo is the exact opposite to it. Earth surface is here. What to say? some point is here, direct radiation is here. Okay. If this is the case, there are like what to say, certain ways of measuring the total radiation. That is at least from only one particular scenario. That is, people run atmospheric models. It will tell us at this particular point, this was the amount of dust and aerosols were present. This was the scattering happened. There are few models to tell us. They will take certain averaging assumptions. Okay, if that is the case, people can model it. So diffuse radiation, people can model it, but they will not be able to tell the exact diffuse radiation from which direction it is coming. What they will assume, they will calculate an average diffuse radiation, average value within this entire hemisphere. What is this average value of diffuse radiation? That is, you assume whatever is the total diffuse radiation, E diffuse, you divide it by the entire hemisphere surrounding the object and assume the direction of diffuse radiation is constant. That is, some radiation is coming in a diffused manner. It is coming equally from all directions. This modeling is possible to some extent, but you cannot tell from which direction which diffuse radiation is coming, how much diffuse radiation is coming. That is almost impossible, but you can tell an average value. If you average within the entire hemisphere, you can calculate this is the total. That kind of modeling is possible. So people will do this, and what they will say is, they will calculate the E reflected within the hemisphere, and they will use this E diffuse total. They won't care about diffuse radiation direction. They will just calculate the total diffuse, and they assume it is coming in equally from all directions, and they won't take into account the direction, the direct wave from the sun. They won't consider this. If you calculate this particular thing for albedo, you will get what is known as a white sky albedo. That is, the sky is giving out pure diffuse radiation, no direct radiation. This is also a theoretical calculation. In real world, this may not occur, but theoretically, people are calculating this. They will calculate this total diffuse radiation, and there are like a lot of papers on this particular topic. We don't go into detail. Just know it is possible to calculate, and we can calculate this reflected value within the hemisphere. If you divide these two, you get what is known as a white sky albedo. So the MODIS data product will give you two things. One is black sky albedo, that is no diffuse radiation at all, purely direct radiation from sun. That is black sky albedo. Second thing is no direct radiation from sun, purely diffuse radiation. That is white sky albedo. In real world, white sky albedo, this kind of condition, that is no direct radiation, only pure diffuse radiation, may occur only under certain circumstances. That is, you are in certain place where entire place is surrounded by uniform thick dark clouds. So they will obscure the direct radiation from the sun. You will not be able to see it, sun at all. But whatever radiation you are receiving will be the diffuse skylight. Only under such overcast, completely overcast, uniform thick dark clouds. I think mostly under monsoon conditions, you may be able to see that. Only under certain circumstances, you can directly measure this white sky albedo. But in other places, we have to model it. Okay, this is somewhat rare case. In real world, in everyday life, what we are experiencing is a mix of these two things. That is, as I said before, sun's radiation has both direct and diffuse component. Direct is also there, diffuse is also there. So the E total received is the combination of E direct plus E diffuse. In real world, you need to get the entire quantity to get the actual albedo. So the actual albedo of a surface is equal to a linear combination of, that is, some A1 into white sky albedo plus some A2 into black sky albedo, where A1 and A2 are some fractions and A1 plus A2 will equal to 1. So some kind of linear equation you have to frame and solve it to get the actual albedo from modus product. This is also not very easy, but maybe like certain people are doing it under certain assumptions. It is possible. Not these things will not be correct, but under people will believe, okay, whatever we are calculating is true. That's how people are doing it. Okay, so actual albedo is difficult to calculate. The take-home message from this slide is actual albedo is difficult to calculate because actual albedo involves us to measure both the direct and diffuse component of radiation. Measuring them is not really an easy task. What is actually be coming in? People can only model the diffuse radiation to a certain extent, not observe everything correctly. So that is why they are defining two concepts. One is white sky albedo and one is black sky albedo, and creating two separate products for it. So I think now you should be knowing what is albedo and what is reflectance, what is white sky albedo and what is black sky albedo. By this time you should be really clear about this. Okay. And one more thing I just wanted to mention is albedo can be spectrally defined and also it can be broadband. That is you can define reflectance. Reflectance is mentioned by a symbol rho. So rho means reflectance in remote sensing. It's a common symbol we use. You can define a reflectance value for red band. You can define reflectance value for green band. You can define reflectance band for NAR band. Similarly, albedo is indicated by symbol alpha. Albedo can be defined for red. Albedo can be defined separately for green. Albedo can be defined separately for blue. So you can define reflectance and albedo in any one spectral band. It is possible. Or if you want the total albedo, like I want the total albedo for the entire visible bandwidth, that is albedo total is equal to average red, green, blue. This is also possible. You can measure or you can calculate reflectance and albedo for any one particular bandwidth possible, or for a total entire huge bandwidth. I want it for whole visible band. I want it for whole NAR band. I want it for entire visible plus NAR band. That sort of broadband calculation is also possible. Please remember, because in some lectures, what I have gone through that is available in internet, people are confused. That is, people are told that reflectance is spectral. That is, if you measure reflectance in small wavelength, you call it reflectance. If you measure it in a very broad wavelength, like visible NAR total, then you call it albedo. Such kind of definitions also exist in some lectures. If you come across some lectures in YouTube, please don't get confused, because most of the students are watching videos in YouTube and learning a lot of stuff. Such difference, people are telling such kind of differences. If you are measuring reflectance in small band, you call it reflectance. If you measure reflectances in a very large bandwidth, you call it albedo. No, that is not the case. Reflectance and albedo are different only because of the direction in which you are observing. If you are observing everything in directionality in one particular direction, you call it reflectance. If you measure the outgoing energy in the entire hemisphere, you are calling it as albedo. And albedo as well as reflectance both can be measured either for one particular small bandwidth or a large bandwidth such as entire visible, entire NAR, entire IR for say. It is possible. Okay, so any doubts till now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, you mentioned about the Modis products that is providing the albedo and snow cover and stuff like that. So does it have, like, we get the information from the Modis, like does it have those necessary algorithms to calculate the albedo, or or does it provide just a raw data and we have to model it ourselves?
Okay. As I said, modus will what to say? Raw data is totally different. Okay, you mentioned the word raw data. That's why I'm saying what the sensor is observing is just mere radiance. Okay, we will see it later. So whatever the reflectance we calculate, surface reflectance, whatever the albedo we calculate, everything is based on certain algorithms, certain models. That you please understand. We cannot, even for calculating surface reflectance, we need some models. Okay, that is first thing. Second thing is, MODIS data product will give you surface reflectance, wide scale albedo, and black scale albedo. MODIS will not give us the actual total albedo. We have to calculate on our own based on certain assumptions. People are doing it. People are doing certain raw assumptions about how the aerosol and atmosphere is distributed, how the incoming diffuse radiation is varying in different directions. People having certain assumptions. Each one will have different assumptions. If you read many different papers on radiation, many different assumptions are there. But the take-home message is, MODIS won't give you the actual albedo. MODIS will give you only the white sky and black sky albedo as well as surface reflectance as observed by the sensor. That's it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, and one more information just for your knowledge is, there is a sensor called MISR, that is multi-angular, some multi-angular spectroradiometer. I forgot its name. What the sensor will do is, just for your knowledge, I'm telling.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Just wait. Yeah, what the sensor will do is, the sensor can tilt at different angles. Like it can have a nadir observation. Like, you know what nadir is? Nadir is looking exactly downwards. Okay. So nadir is without any look angle. If you look exactly downwards at a place, you call it as nadir observation. So this point is called nadir, ground point. Okay. So the MISR sensor will have nadir observation and some 3 or 4 different observations in different angles, or sorry, in each direction. Say here it will be some 20 degrees. Here again it will be some 20, plus 20, minus 20, plus 40, minus 40, plus 70, minus 70. Like that, it will have some 7 to 8 different observations. Like it has many sensors. It will observe the same place in different look angles. If you look like this, same space is observed from different directions, and all the observations will happen within 10 to 15 minutes of duration, because it has simultaneous multiple cameras. It will observe the same land surface within short 10 to 15 minute duration. If that is the case, you have different advantages. One is you can calculate what is the scattering happening due to atmospheric effect, because as the distance between the sensor and the land surface changes, the scattering will change. That is, if you look at nadir, the light ray has to travel less, scattering will be less. If you are looking at a really oblique angle, say at 40 degrees or 50 degrees, then the light ray has to travel a long distance, scattering will be more. Like we saw why during evening times sky is appearing red, right? Same concept. So if you look at different angles, you will get to know what sort of scattering is happening in the atmosphere. It will be helpful for you to correct for atmospheric scattering. And second thing, you will know how a same Earth surface, point on Earth surface will look if you look from different directions. If you look from nadir, how it looks. If you look from 20 degrees away, how it looks. If you look from 20 degrees behind, how it looks. You will get to know that. So this MISR sensor is actually providing you some quantity which is very close to the true albedo, because from these multiple observations, people are able to calculate the diffuse radiation from different directions, what is the reflectance of an object in different directions, and they are able to combine everything together to produce some sort of albedo-like quality. So what MODIS gives is not true albedo. MODIS will give you only white sky albedo and black sky albedo, but this output product from MISR, people tell it is very close to albedo. I have not used it. I don't have any practical experience using MISR data, but I have read it in some journal articles. So if someone is really interested for their PhD studies, you can give a shot. Okay, this is just for your knowledge. Okay, maybe like just with this I will close. This comes to the end of lecture. Just 5 more minutes. Can you please mute everyone? Maybe after this we will have the discussion. Thank you. Yeah. I was telling repeatedly that same object will look different when you look from different angles. That is true for almost all Earth surface features. But how to model it? Is there a way that we can calculate it, or if we can model it? Yes, there is a way. There is a quantity we define, what is known as BRDF, bidirectional reflectance distribution function. Bidirectional reflectance distribution function. We call it as BRDF. What is this essentially about? Essentially, BRDF is about how an object's reflectance will change based on change in illumination geometry and sensor viewing geometry. That is, I have a plant here, sun is located somewhere here, and the sensor is located somewhere here. So with this location of sun and sensor, a plant may have some reflectance. On the other hand, let us say the sun is at nadir and the sensor, instead of here, it is now here. How this plant will look? It will definitely look different. Similarly, if the sun is now moved here, what will happen? So the source geometry will vary based on the location of sun in space. At certain point, sun will be overhead. At certain point, sun will be at horizon, and it will be at east sometime. It will be at west sometime. It will vary. Similarly, sensor can also will have different viewing geometry. How the object reflectance will vary based on this. If we can define a mathematical function for it, that is known as BRDF, bidirectional reflectance distribution function. By definition, BRDF is equal to the radiance going out from an object, because whatever remote sensing sensor measures, it basically measures or it observes the radiance coming out of an object, because radiance is directional going directional energy, and sensor will observe only in one particular direction at a given time. So we are observing radiance. What is the radiance going out from an object? Provided incoming, this is the theta I is the elevation angle of incoming radiation. Phi I is the azimuth angle of incoming radiation. Theta R is the elevation angle of the sensor. Phi R is the azimuth angle of the sensor. So for a given, this is source geometry. For a given source and the sensor geometry, what is the radiance divided by what is the total irradiance at that particular direction? That is, even if the irradiance is from one direction. So essentially, BRDF is defined as the ratio of radiance to irradiance, that is L by E, provided at a given angle of source and a given angle of sensor. So essentially, there are okay. I'll just go back to this slide basically. So essentially, what I want to say is, if you have an object here, if you can move the sun across the entire hemisphere at different places, like from here to here, from here to here, and everything. Similarly, if you can move this particular sensor to all different points on the hemisphere and calculate the reflectance from all points and try to combine everything in form of equation, that equation will give you BRDF. So the BRDF is nothing but a simple mathematical function which tells you the relationship between radiance and irradiance and how an object will look if you have different sensor and source geometry. Okay, this is one thing. Can anyone guess what may be the BRDF of a true Lambertian surface? Just a rough guess. You look at the definition of BRDF, you think about the relationship between irradiance and radiance, and try to give me a value.
1, sir, 1.
No, not 1. Okay, what is the equation relating E and L for a Lambertian surface?
Pi, sir, pi.
1 by pi. E is
1 by
equal
By
to
pi. 1
L
by
pi. So BRDF is defined as L by E. So if you take L by E, it will be 1 by pi. So for a true Lambertian surface, BRDF value is 1 by pi, but it's a constant. So 1 by pi is a constant, and for a true Lambertian surface, radiance is 1 by pi times of the total irradiance. It's a constant, it won't vary at all. But for a normal surface, like for a normal Earth feature surface, this will not be a constant. This will be some function f of which will vary with respect to source and sensor geometry. You will get a basic mathematical equation out of it. For each point in Earth surface, you can get a calculated equation, and that equation will be used for calculating all this albedo. Like I said, we have to calculate albedo. We cannot observe albedo. Define this BRDF helps us to calculate albedo. Okay, so this BRDF, people can measure it using lab instruments. There is an instrument called goniometer. Maybe I'll show you a picture of this goniometer in next class, which will help you to measure this either in laboratory or in field. To a certain extent, we can measure it accurately. Okay, fine. And this is the final slide for the day. Definition wise, BRDF and reflectance may look similar, because in reflectance also we are measuring outgoing radiation and incoming radiation. In BRDF also, both in BRDF and reflection we are doing it, but the definition are different. BRDF is equal to L by E, whereas reflectance rho is equal to E reflected divided by E irradiance. So please know, don't get confused between BRDF and reflectance. Definition wise itself, they are different. Reflectance will vary between 0 to 1, whereas BRDF is kind of a mathematical function. So BRDF is not a single value, except for Lambertian surfaces. BRDF is kind of like a function. So what we should do, BRDF is a mathematical equation. We have to integrate it over the corresponding solid angles to get the reflectance of our choice. That is, say for example, I have BRDF for this particular angle. Say if I have a BRDF equation, I want to calculate the albedo. What I will do, I will take BRDF. I will integrate BRDF within the entire hemisphere, because albedo is defined for entire hemisphere surrounding the object. So take the BRDF, integrate it over 0 to pi by 2. That is, if this is the hemisphere, it has two angles, elevation angle theta, azimuth angle phi. Elevation angle will vary from 0 to pi by 2. Azimuth angle will vary from 0 to 2 pi. Integrate BRDF between these two angles, you will get albedo. So essentially, BRDF is a function. When you integrate it over the angle of your choice, you will get corresponding reflectance value. Whether you get directional reflectance or whether you get hemispherical reflectance, BRDF will give you. So definition is different. BRDF is a function, not a single value. You have to integrate BRDF to get reflectance. And finally, reflectance has no units. Reflectance is both bottom and numerator and denominator has same units. They will cancel out, no units. Whereas BRDF, if you look at the definition, you will get a unit of stadian power -1. That is, top you have a radians watt per meter square per stadian. Bottom you have watt per meter square. These things will cancel out. This SR -1 will remain. So BRDF has a unit of stadian power -1 or 1 by stadian, whereas reflectance don't have any units. So keep this in mind. Reflectance and BRDF are different quantities. BRDF helps us to understand how object will look differently from different directions, and by integrating BRDF, we can calculate reflectance. Okay. So next class on Monday, I will teach you like somewhat complex derivation, but it will be easy. We will do it. Okay. On Monday, I will teach you. So today, with this, we come to the end of the class. Any doubts on today's class? Hello? Yeah, your voice is too low. Who's talking basically?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
So, sir, in that directional process, can you move to 15 number slide?
15. 1 second. This one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, sir, as you are saying in case 8, this is mostly we are using, but if we are using active sensors, so which directional we are using?
Okay. What I told you till now is for passive, for sun and other things. If you are using an active sensor like a radar or something, you will be observing everything, mostly from one particular direction. Your source of direction also will be from one direction. Your receiving also will be from one direction. Basically, for active sensors, your incoming also will be in this direction. Your outgoing also will be in the same direction. Essentially, that will be the case. That is altogether different geometry. And for active sensors, these things won't matter much because active sensors measure different properties. Maybe we will see when we deal about microwave remote sensing. I will introduce you to microwave remote sensing towards the end of the course. Then you will understand what we are measuring there is totally different from what we are measuring here. There you need not concentrate much about this. There what you have to think about is electrical properties of object, totally different concept. We will see later. But in active, this won't be a big issue. Only for passive remote sensing, that too in visible, linear and SWR bandwidths, all these things matter most.
Sir, does the cloud cover percentage has something to do with the diffused radiation and the direct radiation? For example, if the cloud cover is 100%, so is the direct radiation 0?
True. Cloud cover as a major factor. As I said, if the cloud cover is 100%, I was also telling during monsoon days, if you have like a big slab of thick rain cloud above you and top of you, you won't get any direct radiation. Direct radiation will always be 0, and whatever you receive will be diffused radiation, and also equally in all directions, most likely. On the other hand, if you have like a small patch of clouds, yeah, I will draw here. If you have like a land surface here, if you have like a sun is here and there is some object here, let us say a part of an object is being obscured by a cloud. So this direct radiation, it will be obscured by cloud, and sun may illuminate the other part directly. So at this particular point of object, say here direct radiation will be less, here direct radiation will be more, essentially. So cloud fraction, how the cloud has distributed itself will definitely change both the direct and diffuse component. That is why I said it is very difficult to model this cloud cover, and that is why people don't calculate the exact diffuse radiation from different directions. It is because of presence of cloud and dust, it is really difficult. Cloud cover plays a major role. Yes.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. A general question is, sir, is communication class has attendance clause?
Attendance class, I am taking attendance, but I may not use it, but not sure. It depends on what the institute says, because I have to abide by institute regulations. If they say you can use attendance, I will use it. If they say no, I won't use it. So I'm not yet clear from institute side. Okay, but try to attend classes. Whether I will use it or not, I will announce it in class.
Like I came at the end of the class and I was there in the group activity as well. So does that count as present?
As long as you're submitting your assignments properly, I think you will be safe. Like both your individual as well as group assignments. If you are submitting that, I think it's better.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I will be little lenient about attendance this time. Last semester, I was very strict because of physical classes. Everyone was present at the institute. Even still, if student cannot come, I took it into account. I have failed certain students based on just lack of attendance. But this semester, I will be little lenient. Don't worry. But please submit all the assignments. Assignments, I'll be very strict.
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't submit,
sure,
you will get a negative thing. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah, fine. Okay, I think we will end today's class if there are no more questions. And just for information, I am planning to prepare quiz number 2. Like, hello, someone is talking. Suraj, I think you're talking. Any questions, Suraj?
I also missed my assignment, but I have participated in the group activity and I was
No,
active.
group activity, it is a group-based assignment. You need not submit individually.
Okay, sir. If one person from a group has submitted, then
It's fine.
Then
Yes, it's fine.
thank you.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, just for remote sensing, coming back to remote sensing course, what to say? Yeah, quiz 2, I am preparing it like similar to quiz 1. It will be short, maybe 10 questions or 15 questions, just for 10 to 15 minutes. I will tell you in Moodle, and very short quiz only. I won't make it complex. Please take it. Most likely within this weekend, I will upload quiz number 2, and next week you will get assignment number 3. As I said before, the entire course will have lot of small assignments, small quizzes. If you are able to have midsum and endsum as planned, we will have it. If it is not possible because of corona issues, because of logistics issues, I will give weightages to all these assignments and quizzes. So please submit your assignments and quizzes. If you have any problem, please ask me. I'm there to help you, not to trouble you. So and assignments and quizzes are there to make sure you learn things, not to make life difficult. Please understand that. And quizzes and assignment will come in this weekend. You can expect one quiz. Next week you can expect assignment number 3 after I finish everything in radiometry. Okay, so that is the announcement I wanted to make. And I think till Monday, on Monday we will see. Till then, have a good time. Any doubts, please feel free to message me in WhatsApp or email me anytime you want. I am there to help you. Take care,
Okay,
and
sir. Thank you
we'll
so
see
much.
next week. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, sir.